This is Short Hammer. It is the 1st of May, 2022, and this is Trading Zones. We had a really interesting week with just so many tech earnings and the big news of Elon and Twitter and sort of how that changed the dynamics of the market. It was just a really interesting week. Um, so just all the things that came out were interesting. I can't even say that was it, but just the entire week was interesting. I guess the Elon thing was neither here nor there. So looking at the Rust, what do we see? So we came into the week with a nice bit of selling. And the week began with a little weakness. Then we saw some strength. Then we sold back down. If we look here from the 26th over to the 27th, the sellers really couldn't find, this is on the 4-hour chart, they really couldn't find continuation below the 1881 on the RTY. And it just seems as if the buyers are just fighting to keep us up here. And we see a nice little bounce. But when we went up, it seems as if the buyers couldn't get us above 1925, and then we sold. And that selling at the end of the week was insane. And the reason I'm saying that it's insane is because so many things, and we talked about this. I think if you listen to our last video, um, just some of the things that we talked about was how because of inflation and the rising of or the raising of interest rates, it'd be hard for a lot of companies to guide up, and like you can't guide up heading into an environment of higher interest rates, even if those interest rates are technically low historically. That you're leaving a lower interest rate environment and headed into a higher interest rate environment just doesn't bode well, especially for earnings and guidance. It's tough, right? And then you have the Ukraine Russia situation that's, though is happening on the other side of the world for many of us, it's a global situation, the supply chain situation. I won't get into that. If you want to sort of hear some of that, check out the last video. And that I really get into that. So let's get to these levels. So what are we watching for this upcoming week? So we're down here around this 1864 area. We haven't been able to find or close below this 1864 area, right? So what are we going to watch for? So I'm going to zoom out. When was the last time we were down here in that 1864 area? Over here. So what I'm going to do is swap this to a daily chart. It's going to look a little funky at first. I'm going to have to play with it and straighten this out. Don't worry about it. It's all good. So I know this looks weird on your screen when you see me do this, but I do this all the time when I'm looking at charts. Okay. So it looks like this area here, this 1861. So this was back on the 24th of November, 2020, right? And you see that we sort of had a buy up into this 1860s area, pull back, try to get through, pull back again. Then we sort of push through there with a nice strong buy candle here on the 4th of December. Nice push here. That got us through that level. So before that, looks like no. Nice little break into that area, right? So technically, since that break back on the and we're still not there if you look at this, right? Let me look at this properly. Oh no, we're there. We haven't been this low Yeah, we haven't been this low since December of 2020. And that's interesting, right? And so we're back to that level. Nice little break there. So we have to see if the buyers are going to hold this or if we're going to go back down. This is really interesting level. So that's what we can see. That there was a little bit of first test was a little bit of supply we couldn't get through, and it's like they had to reload and finally got us through there. I'm not sure of what was going on this day that would that caused this buy up, and it's not really that important. We just know this is a technically significant level, and if we happen to sell through here, I would look for the 18, what's this, 1819-ish, 1815-ish area. Is that what this line says? It's like 1815, about 1815-20, and look to see if buyers step in there also. So this is actually really interesting. So this is like a little small box. We want to see what happens between the 1815 and 1861, see if buyers step in, try to buy us back up. But if we drop through there, we see our next level below the 1815s. Then we're starting to look at the 1758s. These are some levels to watch next week. So let me open this up a little bit wider here. We do want to see what happens if we get back over the 1860s into the 1880s or higher. Look at all our lines we have here. You got these levels. But what it looks like to me, if you switch back to the 4-hour chart, and you saw what we were looking at on, let me show you over here, right? So you see that little interesting box, 1815 to the 1860s, see what happens there. But what you want to look at on the 4-hour, I have to straighten this out again, on this chart is if you're just looking at the last two waves, this is technically a lower high, right? Lower low than this. And yeah, lower high, lower high, lower low. Technically lower low to me. Lower low, lower high. And this is technically going to be a lower low. So it's downtrending. That's all we need to know, is that we're downtrending right now. So keep an eye out. This, remember, RTY, they made up of a lot of financial stocks. So keep an eye on your financials. And high interest rate environments are usually good for banks, but it's like a half in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Yes, high interest rate environments are good for banks. At the same time, high interest rate environments are usually not good for growth, right? So the banks that need people to be buying more houses and service mortgages, they may see a slight sort of pullback when it comes to that part of their market, but they're still going to make money on the parts where they make their interest, right? And there are other ways that banks make money, not my area. But just remember, whatever's going on, even though there may be a little bit of fluttering when it comes to guidance and earnings, banks usually do okay in almost any environment. Like, they always find a way to make money. That's just how banks are designed. They're going to make money coming and going. Regardless of what they say, they pass on all fees, and all charges are passed on directly to the consumer. So there is, I don't know, but that's just just my thought there. So even though things may be changing as far as there may be a pullback, bank should still be okay overall. Now over into the MES, and you see a similar setup, right? But this one's a little bit closer, but lower high, lower low, lower high, and trying to make it. This is like almost a lower low here. It's definitely, but I want to see more candles. It's more like a wave. But this isn't drop as far as I thought it would, and I think we definitely could see some selling at the beginning of next week. We have to see where this is sitting and if this shakes out a little bit lower. So be careful when the week opens. But I think there may be some selling left because in my opinion, I didn't see a lot of buying. And there were, plenty of opportunities for us to close higher than we did close. And so we just seemed a little bit heavy. So we have to see if on Sunday when the futures open up, if we gap down or if we get a nice little retrace. But my bet is that there's a good chance we go lower. The only thing pushing back against that is that we closed at this previous dip here on the 26th of April. We closed roughly around that area. So it almost begs the question, are there buyers that may wish to try to push this back up? But my thoughts are that is that we're going down. That's what I'm thinking. So we'll see how that shakes out. So if we go back a little bit, if you just look at this just a bigger time frame, right? If you just hold the cursor here across this line here, the 41, 42 area. So how many times have we tested that? So if we go back, right? So the 26th of April, 2022, right? Tested, buyer stepped in. Let's go back. The 15th of March, 2022, tested, buyer stepped in, reverse went back up. Here, the 7th of March, 2022, we tested, buyer stepped in, went back up. Here on the 23rd of February 2022, we tested a few times, feathered it, but buyers stepped in, right? And they sort of got us back above, went a little bit lower, went down to the 41.10s, but it sort of pushed us back to the 41.40s and got us back above that, right? So each one of these buy-ups, it seems as if the wave at least hit the 42.50s, which is interesting. So when I say at least that area, yes, it kind of did go a little bit higher, but we hit at least the 42.50s. So that's interesting. So if buyers do step in and buys back into the 41.40s, maybe we see this pattern repeat. So that would be interesting. But I'm thinking we may see lower lows, but let's see how that works out. So we see these previous levels and what happened when we pierced the 41.40s, how the buyers did step in. And we have to see if that happens here or if we continue with our selling to the downside. I'm thinking there may be some more weakness, but keep your eyes on it. Remember, wait for the setup, have your plan, and just take your shot. Just make sure you manage your risk, right? If you have a strong thesis on a setup and the data is there to back up sort of what the trade that you wish to take, just take it and manage that risk well, right? And when I say manage that risk, that means that the amount that you have at risk, that's all you're going to lose. Like whatever that risk number is, if you say, hey, the max amount that I could lose is $500, right? And maybe for this setup, if it goes past this demand or supply area, that's my stop. So you would line it up so that you would be able to get in and be able to manage your risk and exit at that point without the setup or the pattern that you're playing, without that breaking. So technically, when you enter a trade, in my opinion, your stop should be break of pattern, setup nullified. That's where you should look for a stop, not just a whole like a dollar number. It should be a structure, or in my opinion, it should be a structure that breaks that. You say, okay, this setup is gone now. We can go ahead and stop out. Just my opinion, but definitely keep an eye on this. Head over to the MNQ. Here we go. Hello, ATM. So looking at the MNQ this week, same thing, right? Went up for a bit, then we dropped. But what we were watching is this 13.4, 13.4, is it? I thought it was like, no, 13.560s. That's what it was. So the 13.5 60s through this area, 13.580s, right? And when we dipped here and we bought back up, right? So I'm looking at this as almost like a janky M pattern, like this, and then this, right? I know it's janky. That's fine. Doesn't bother me. Um, but as I'm watching that, I'm like, man, I wonder if we're going to sell below this area here. And we didn't, right? We did test, we got close, but we didn't sell below. We didn't see an extension down. But we did want, like, if I was bullish, if I was someone that was bullish, I was watching this and I'm watching this uptrend here as we're riding, I would want us to pop the 13,380s all together and get into the 13,900s and then give me a bid and a rise back up a little bit further rather than us rejecting that area strongly and selling back to the downside. That's not a great sign. Also breaking this short-term uptrend. So I'll be watching tech, and tech had a lot of, earnings this past week, and that would explain the weakness in tech. But I would recommend reading through some of those earning reports if it's a company that you're interested in, because you do want to know what's going on. One, two, you want to see if there are any opportunities for you to invest, to get something at a point where, whether it's their share buyback programs or whatever innovations they may have that are coming down the pipe that you think may boost the stock, you want to see where you'd want to get in, and just stick to that wherever that may be, and just manage that risk. But definitely the Qs are setting up, and it's interesting how the Qs look and how the Qs are so much weaker, right? So much weaker than the MES and the RTY, in my opinion. How it looks, just how it was moving, just looked super weak. So we'll see how that plays out. This, or should I say later today, will be interesting. Headed over to Amazon now. Amazon gave it all up. Just what we talked about last week on Amazon was the potential for it to go 300 points. Sort of either way, right? Just depending if it beats us 300 points up at least, if it misses us 300 points down at least. And those are some of the things that we were discussing. So yeah, we sold earnings, look at that sell. So what are we watching now? We're watching this 2470s area to see if buyers get us back up there. Let's look at the last time we were there. So let's flip to the daily chart here and see what that looks like. So the last time we were there, if you want to look at this, was 2020, right? And so what we want to see is, as I'm looking at this, I think this is interesting, if the buyers step in here and sort of get us back up and buy us back, close the gap, then make a decision. We have to see how that plays out. But Amazon was pretty weak, and a sizable amount of selling. So the question is, do the bulls feel confidence? And if the bulls feel confidence, then they may try to get in here. But I think we're going lower. I'm not predicting that we're going lower. I just think that the way that we close is pretty weak. We just have to see if this continues to the downside. But the levels that we'll watch around here are 26, 26, 26, 60. Below that, the 2474, 2450, and the 2407. Just some levels we're going to keep an eye on. Okay. Taking a peek at Microsoft. Microsoft does not look bad. Let's switch back to the 4-hour chart. Okay. Oopsie. Open up. Bring this closer. Drag that up. Okay. So not too bad. Let's see. We've had lower levels here, so not too bad. So we had to see if we go back and test this 271 area, or if the buyers, when they come, also give us a push up here on Microsoft. I did not review the earnings report, but usually for earnings, Microsoft is pretty confident, and they usually do well in all phases of the company. just based on how they report it. That's all that we know. So we have to see how this shakes out, but it's definitely stronger than some of the other tickers um, that we've been sort of following lately. So we'll see how Microsoft shakes out. But right now we're between the 276 and 278. Below us 271, then 267, then 265 to the upside. Want to keep our eye out for this 283 level, then 284.30s. And if you're just watching this overall, right? And let's say you're bullish and you want this to go up. Personally, I would want to see this thing be bullish above the 292 area, 293, be bullish above that, just to show that there's excitement and people are looking to get in. That would make me feel better about taking this if I were to take this. But I'll be watching for us to get over the 200, break this area here. The 290.90, is that 290.92? I think that's 290.90. Yep, 290.92. So that'd be interesting. So if I'm bullish, I want that area to break over, and I want us to get to the next area above that, and for us to just see strong buying to squeeze the upside. So that'll be interesting on Microsoft. Head on over to Apple. Nice little back test here. But just general fading, and I tend to not trade Apple as much. But this is I don't really see a solid clear setup here. Not the way that this looks. So just be careful. Take a peek over here. Nice sell on Intel. Next stop 42.88 if we continue to sell. If we buy back up, the 45, 44 area is going to pose a few challenges. Above that's the 47.27. Downside 42.88. So we'll have to see how this shakes out. There's a possibility we could dip down to here's the 42.80s. We'll have to see where the buyers are. But Intel isn't something I would recommend chasing. I would recommend I'll wait for a pullback if I want to short, or a good buy up and a test to show buyers are there from one along. I want to see that the buyers are there. Okay. NVIDIA. Okay, lower. So let me go to the day chart. Well, we got to get through the 181.90s. We'll see how we do there. Then above that's the 292, 217.20, 217.21. That may be a bridge too far because we're down here. But the first area we'll watch is the $200 point, and see if we could buy up above that. If see if we could buy up above that. Then we want to keep an eye on the 181.90s to see if anyone's trading for that. Okay, interesting. Yep, we're keeping an eye on NVIDIA and just on the chip sector altogether, because you know how chips are just so temperamental. But yeah, I don't see anything I'll take there on NVIDIA. Okay, Netflix, heavy, down around the 190s. To me, I don't see a sign of it slowing. We have to see how this shakes out. But I didn't port the lines over. That's some lines I wanted to add to this on Netflix. So I'm not gonna do Netflix now, but 191. Just with this level of selling, I would expect a strong relief bounce at some point. But that's interesting. Gotta wait for that to set up on Netflix. see. Let's check out Facebook. Okay. So nice pop here. Pull back. Holding the 198s, even though we went down almost to the 191s. So what you want to see here, for like what I want to see here, is for us to get over the 210s and for the buyers to step in. And I watched the last hitch here, which is around the 217s, is a good exit area. So we want to see some buying to get out of this area here, this sideways action. It's a grinding action. And we want that to sell down to one of our stores. Down to one of her stores. What am I talking about now? We wanted to sell, thinking about something else. We want this to sell down to this lower area here, 198.10. So I would look for movement below that or movement above the 210. So for me, I'm not really touching Facebook in between this area. I want to see selling below 198, or I want to see buying above 210. That's sort of what I'll be watching for on Facebook, just how all these earnings are digested. And one of the things, remember what we discussed was, no, maybe I was discussing this with a buddy of mine. I think that Facebook's pivot over to the metaverse and their focus on Oculus Rift was brilliant, right? Because they kind of saw the writing on the wall, how on their ad side there would be challenges, right? Just going forward, there are going to be challenges. The more platforms and the more places people can go, right, for content, then those places could now also be competition as they sell advertising based on how they're selling their advertising, right? So it's good to sort of be the number one in an area like Oculus Rift, virtual reality, and sort of push that. I think it's a very strategic move by Facebook. Tip of the cap. Really smart. Let's head over to Tesla. So you have our levels there. Tesla did take this on Friday, had a ball. So looking at Tesla here, kind of in a no man's land for me, the way that I see this. And I would be looking for, can we get back over the 937s and kind of grind this up? If we continue to sell, it could get interesting. We are right above the 857. Below that's the 819 and the 784 line. Those are areas that in the past we've, kind of had battles between buyers and sellers, spent a little bit extra time around those areas. So I think they're still valid, right? And a lot of times it works out really good for us. So we'll see what Tesla does next week. Not sure if Elon is actually liquidating, all those shares to be able to get Twitter, however many shares he'd have to liquidate. I don't think so. I think he's going to borrow the money and then sort of pick up Twitter. So if he doesn't sell Tesla shares to be able to acquire Twitter, should it negatively affect Tesla? And maybe people are thinking that there'll be a lack of focus from him because he has so much going on. So that will be interesting, but definitely keep an eye on Tesla if we get above 937 or if we drift below 857, 819. That's where that could get really interesting. I think we also saw some selling in CI. Nice little dip here. Nice little retrace. It played out the way that we wanted to play out. We weren't in though. But healthcare is so interesting. Earnings are coming. So just keep an eye on this to see if we can get a little bit of stability and a pushback into the 250s, preferably mid 250s or higher. But we'll see how this plays out if we continue to sell, because the market does overall look weak. So we just have to see how this backs out. And we will. So looking at the SPY right around that 412 area, you don't really see too much. Maybe back here in 24th of February where we kind of bounce around the 412 area. So what we want to see is there continued selling heading into this upcoming week, or have the buyer said that's enough, right? But it's just so much news that's not great. We'll have to see how this plays out. If you like this video, please don't hesitate to go to our YouTube channel, Power of Pivots, and subscribe. And once you subscribe, you could not only receive videos from me, but also videos from Elisa as she goes through how she finds great trades utilizing a power of pivot strategy. It's a great pre-market, a great intraday, and a great post-market strategy that could really help many with spotting setups and patterns that they may be willing to take. Thank you so much for your time. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.